Over the past decade, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin have become close. They made pancakes together and toasted with vodka. Xi even presented China's first friendship medal to Putin.
The alignment between the two countries is getting closer, and some analysts would say it's more close than at any point in the past 60 years.
But that relationship is now getting tested after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has prompted the US and its allies to drop a barrage of sanctions against Moscow. They included hitting Russia's energy industry, a major source of the country's income, as well as unplugging the world's 11th largest economy from the global financial system. But China has taken a different position.
两国人民的友谊坚如磐石。
As Russia's biggest trading partner, China could provide the country with much-needed help by purchasing energy and providing financial services, but the friendship has limits. One of the biggest hits to Russia has been its energy sector. It's the world's largest natural gas exporter and produces about 10% of the world's oil, and last year, total exports reached about $240 billion. So when Putin deployed troops to break away regions of Ukraine, the West tried to hit Russia where it could hurt.
One of the responses that the West has had to Russia's invasion is to re-examine the energy relationship it has with Russia.
One of the biggest re-examinations was the Nord Stream 2 project, a newly built pipeline that was expected to send 55 billion cubic meters of natural gas from Russia directly to Germany, doubling the volume. Germany said it would halt the $11 billion project. And as Russia has continued bombarding civilian areas of Ukraine, the U.S. took action against Russian energy.
We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy.
The UK also said it would phase out Russian oil imports, while the EU said it's aiming to cut some imports too. China could help fill some of the gaps. A few weeks before Russia's invasion, Putin visited the Chinese president ahead of the Winter Olympics. During their meeting, Beijing agreed to buy 100 million tons of crude oil from its neighbor.
There was another agreement between Russia and China to construct a new pipeline that would send an additional 10 billion cubic meters of natural gas.
That's on top of an existing 1,800-mile pipeline that's already sending 16 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year to China. But even with all of the planned pipelines running at full capacity, China's purchase would still fall short of what the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was expected to send each year to Germany. And all of these Chinese projects will take years to fully bear fruit.
The deals are significant in size, but they still don't amount to any sort of immediate economic lifeline for Russia. The new pipeline won't be constructed until 2026. And even the crude oil deal, that will stretch out over the course of a decade.
Energy hasn't been the only sector hit by the West. It's also been isolating Russia's financial industry. The US and its allies said they would remove 7 Russian banks from the global financial messaging system SWIFT, which is used by more than 11,000 banks and other organizations in more than 200 countries and territories. And getting excluded means these banks can't execute financial transactions, meet obligations, or receive payments for exports, practically disconnecting a large part of Russia's economy. But China could help out here too.
There was speculation that perhaps China's rival system, the cross-border interbank payment system, could provide something of a lifeline to Russian banks.
However, the Chinese system has its own limitations. Last year, it handled an average of just 13,000 transactions a day. Although the comparison isn't exact, SWIFT processed more than 40 million messages per day.
China's system is teeny at the moment, so analysts don't really think that the Chinese system is a viable alternative.
Russian banks could also face problems with their credit cards. Visa and MasterCard said they're suspending their Russia operations, which practically blocks many Russians from purchasing goods or services outside the country. To get around this, several Russian banks said they were working on the possibility of issuing cards that use China's state-owned UnionPay system. These cards are accepted widely online and in stores around the world, but switching to this new system would also take time.
There are ways for China to help Russia economically, but every time China helps Russia, it risks provoking further confrontation with the West.
So far, China has been trying to strike a delicate balance. It has opposed the Western sanctions,
制裁从来不是解决问题的根本有效途径。
But at the same time, it hasn't signaled that it would be ready to backstop Russia's economy. U.S. officials said that Russia has also asked China for military equipment, and the White House issued a warning.
Should they provide military or other assistance that, of course, violates sanctions or supports the war effort, that there will be significant consequences.
The Chinese embassy in the U.S. says it has never heard of such a request from Moscow, and China has earlier made vague pledges to facilitate negotiations to end the war.
中方愿意继续为劝和促谈发挥建设性作用，也愿意在需要的时候同国际社会一道开展必要的斡旋。
The bottom line for China is to ensure its own strategic interests. Beijing wants to keep Russia close as a strategic collaborator against the West, but it's also having to manage its own relationship with the US and the West to keep that from going off the rails.